Well, Steve, it's a pleasure of mine to be here with you. I gotta say, I owe you quite a bit because the last 3 or 4 years, I think I've averaged selling 25 edge homes per year to my clients because you guys have all the best inventory. So thank you.
You are absolutely welcome, and you've been incredible.
Yeah, it's been fun. It's funny because being in real estate, I've been in real estate now for 14 years, and you guys it felt like edge homes came out of nowhere, even though it was building for several years in a row. And now you guys are the number one home builder in the state of Utah.
Yeah, and interestingly enough, our geographical footprint really extends from Vineyard in Utah County to Riverton here in Salt Lake. So we're doing it in a compressed footprint, which we really think is the A-plus locations, and spend 99% of our resources, time, energy, financially, in locating areas that we feel will be advantageous to the buyers of Utah, Salt Lake County markets.
Yeah, it really is incredible. I mean, it seems like every time I go to sell somebody a new home, you guys are in the best areas. If they want to be in that area, you can kind of rest assured that Edge Homes is going to be there. And give us real quick some numbers. How many homes are you guys going to be building this year in 2018 here in
Yeah,
Utah?
really good question. A year ago, if you had asked me the question, I would have told you that we'd be around 1,000 this year. We will probably be in the 1,400 closings this year. So we have not done a good job projecting what the market will be. We refer to it as white hot, and our biggest problem today that we face is not the ability to sell communities, it's the ability to build communities with labor shortages. So we will be right around closings of 1,400 homes this year.
Yeah, I sit on a board down in Utah County that talks with a lot of the home builders and things like that. And the biggest issue everybody's having is finding enough people to help build the properties as opposed to anything. I mean, obviously supplies have gone up and materials gone up and all that different things, but really finding the workers. I mean, to build 1,400 homes, how many employees does Edge, or how many employees do you guys have now?
Yeah, about 150, and then about 25 independent contractors, realtors that work for us, and then about 8,000 subcontractors that work within the Edge umbrella.
Wow. And those subcontractors are staying busy pretty much full time with you guys?
So we work on a 5-day schedule, work schedule. If you go out to our job sites, it's probably a 7-day actual schedule. There is certainly the mentality that get the goods while it's good, and our subcontractors have a revolving schedule. So they can tell you where they need to be in 90 days. If they fall behind, they have the ability to catch up. So it is a frothy pace right now. Our subs are keeping up with our schedule. The more organized we become, the more organized they become.
Yeah, I imagine. So, well, I want to back up and really get this story because, again, to become the number one home builder in Utah, you guys are doing amazing things. And one of the cool things about being a builder, by the way, is you build communities. Those things last forever. Yeah. I love the idea of that, right? I got my degree in real estate development at Arizona State, and it was funny because I kind of thought I wanted to go that route. And I always joke around that the one thing I learned by getting my degree in real estate development is that I don't want to go into real estate development. There's a lot of risk and things involved there. And so I really want to see and hear your story of how you built this thing. So let's back up. Give me an idea. What were you doing before this and how'd you make that transition?
It goes back a long ways. I had finished school and I was working for a title company. And it was back in the day when funds were not electronically wired. And there was a check that I was dropping off to Bruce Dickerson at Skyline Development, and I was driving a really, really nice Dodge Intrepid, and I had my flip phone, and I was wearing a nice polyester suit, and I knew there must be more to life. And I was dropping off this check, and as I got into his parking lot, he had a red 911 that still had brand new plates on it. The leather still smelled, even though it was a convertible, and it upset me, because I knew I was going to walk in there, and he'd be wearing shorts, flip-flops, and his hair wouldn't be combed, and he'd have a hat on, and he would have just come back from golfing, and I'm in a suit. So this happened for a period of about a year, and he became a very dear friend. And one day I took the opportunity to look under the envelope to see how much his proceed check was, and I finally went in there and I hit his desk, and I just said, why am I working so hard and giving everything, and you're in shorts, flip-flops, a hat? And he laughed for 15 minutes, and we went for a drive, calmed me down a little bit, and I thought I want to go into real estate development. Did not understand what you've indicated, Jimmy, which was the risk factor, the appetite of gambling, the thought process of everything can be lost is lost. So I entered the market around 2000 as a developer. And I was embarrassed to tell people I was a developer because that was a league that I was not part of. I still bought my shoes at Costco and was very conscientious, and earnest money was $5 to me, not $500,000 to me. So they took me under their wing. It was L&T Construction. And then I opened up a real estate company concurrent with that, Prudential and affiliated in Utah County. So we were running a marketing machine, a development machine, for a period of about 7 years. And it became very apparent that I gravitated towards the development side and not the real estate side. The emotional side of the business was very challenging for me to understand why there were people that got so caught up in the home they were going to purchase, knowing they were only going to be there 3 years. I felt like this isn't emotion, this is a business decision. So I gravitated towards that and got heavily
that's
involved.
actually kind of a funny thought, because I always tell people you're not choosing, because some people get so paralyzed by the decision to buy a home.
Yes.
I'm like, you can divorce this a lot easier than picking a mate, right? Like a spouse.
Well, nothing's permanent in housing. Very few people
Right.
look back and say, I've been in the same house 20 years. Everybody says, I'm moving up. It's a lateral movement continually, particularly in the affordable housing segment, where it is a stepping stone. And once somebody has their second child or third child, nobody's content anymore, and everybody needs a little bit more, and toys grow. So in '08, the world went dark. And everybody around me seemed as if they went from a state of euphoria and the market can never change here in Utah, and we're impervious to the changes that are happening all around us in the West Coast, the East Coast, and it hit Utah. And it hit in a big way. And I saw banks recoil on commitments they had made. I had business partners that did not know what to do. I had two dear friends that decided life on earth was not worth it anymore, and there was this cloak of darkness that hit, and I wasn't meeting anybody that had any enthusiasm for the tomorrows of the world. And so it was this scramble of what do we do with our assets, what do we do with development, and all of a sudden the term developer came synonymous with banks, used car salesmen, attorneys, and it was kind of an industry that was not admired. It wasn't noble to build homes anymore. It wasn't noble to create neighborhoods, and it was everybody hated their builder, and everybody hated their real estate agent, and everybody hated the community, and there was this bitter element within the market.
Well, and I think in that time frame, because in 2000, I got into business in 2005. In 2005, 6, 7, everybody decided they were a developer, right?
Yeah.
There was a lot of competition, people that didn't know what they were doing. I had a lot of realtor friends ended up losing everything because they all decided to be developers.
Yes.
And I'm just lucky that I was young, and probably because I probably would have done the same thing. It just seemed like it was the thing that everybody was doing. But there was so much, like you say, doom and gloom. I mean, it's funny to look back on the MLS now. There was basically no homes built from 2008 to 2009, 10, that time frame. So where were you at that time? Were you overexposed? Were you, because you guys came out of those ashes that's when you started to really launch. But where were you going into the recession of 2007, 2008?
So I was alone, and I had some assets that were doing extremely well, some rental units around BYU, and that was augmenting the income of loss that I had on other projects. So it was kind of this daily ritual of how much did I lose today, and how much more staying power do I have? And every day I am driving by communities where lots are built and sitting, and in my heart of hearts I'm thinking, if I could figure out how to buy that, I could turn this around. And I think it's a little bit indicative of probably being at a poker table, saying if I just have one more. And there was these internal debates of what, and how do you navigate this, and how long is it going to last? Everything that I'm reading every morning was this can't go on forever, and then another bank would close, or another foreclosure would happen, or another friend was losing their house. And this wasn't a 1 month, 2 month. This became years, and this became the new norm. And so you start questioning what the future is. My father, I would call him and just say, Dad, what about? And he would explain cycles to me. But it didn't feel like there was going to be a cycle. It just felt like the new world was this.
Yeah, at the time, I mean, for me, I really doubled down on my efforts in 2007, 2008. I remember I keep track of all my numbers, and I called over 5,000 for sale by owners that year, listed 187 of them, and I think I sold 15 of them.
Yes.
And I was their best hope.
Yeah.
And I mean, you're sitting across from couples that are just one after, and there was like no end in sight. It was like, how many years am I going to have to do this? I mean, looking back now, I don't remember feeling depressed at the time, but like looking at it now, I'm like, man, those were really hard times. You walk out of every appointment, every Friday I'd call every seller to give them an update, and there was no showings. There was nobody was going. Because everybody knew if I buy a house today, it's going to go down 20% before it goes up again.
Yeah.
So I do remember, like, and there was no, looking back now, obviously we came out of it so well as an economy, but at the time there was no end in sight. Nobody really knew what was going to happen.
And there wasn't a lot of hope. The people that I had anchored onto in the past for this will work its way out, they didn't have the hope that I was used to. I met my current business partner, Gordy Jones, and we joked that we were both in the fetal position, and we swapped days, of who held each other, and we became this what-if group. And we began to talk about people are still buying homes, there's still value, what can we do? So we strapped on our suits and we went to the banks. And we said, what assets do you have? And they would pull out binders of assets that they had. And then they would say, hey, better yet, we'll finance you, we'll do anything. And all of a sudden, we became the local celebrities of, if you can help us remove some of these assets, we'll do some financing. So we began with about 30 homes the first year in 2009. And we were elated, and we gave the homes away. We were excited if we made $1,000 because it was significantly better than staring at each other in an office. And at least we had this energy of we're working. And then we went to our subcontractor base and we explained to them, this is our hope. If you want to get out of the house in the morning and come and frame for us or come and do plumbing, whatever you want to do, we think there's $1.50 or $2 to be made on this job, but at least you're busy again. And there was once again this thought of life is okay. I have something to do in the morning. I have hope. And it was funny to see the camaraderie on the job site. It felt a little reminiscent of 2005. Not nearly the cadence, not nearly the pace that we wanted, but there was work to be had. And then we found these young buyers that still had optimism. We had government programs that were going on. And so we began selling homes. This almost quadrupled in about a year and a half. And we just started this momentum of there are people that want homes. There are people living in basements that want to get out. There are parents that want to kick their kids out. And we began building these homes. So in about 11, we realized there was an incredible opportunity here, and we felt the market turning at that point. We felt as if the market was standing on its own. Our daily ritual was to check interest rates. Our daily ritual was to check foreclosure rates, job growth, et cetera, et cetera. So all these key indicators of where the market was going became our daily breakfast, because we just felt like we needed to give our buyers or potential buyers these shots of enthusiasm and encouragement for the future. Those buyers that we sold to in 10 that have 50, 60% equity in their homes are our best friends now.
Yeah.
And it is funny now how that has turned, where I get thank you cards and Christmas cards of, hey, we would have never been able to afford the home we're into now. Like 82% of them, I think statistically, could not afford the home they bought in 11 and 12 because the market has changed so dramatically.
Well, that is one of the best parts of the business the last 7-8 years is every single person I've sold a home to is happy because they've all...
You're the hero.
Yeah, no, and I was sending people down to Arizona. We had a deal with a HUD agent down there, a bank, the bank has their HUD contractors, and they could get us any deal 15% below the HUD price.
Yeah.
On top of, they were already 50% below the affordability rate. And so, I mean, I had friends buy homes now that, have quadrupled in value in Arizona. And I think I sent 80, 85 investors down there, and they're all my best friends. They all think that, so I can only imagine how many homes you guys built and how many people absolutely just love you for that. So what a cool feeling to know that you...
Well, and you mentioned earlier, my partners and my favorite thing after community's done is to pull in, kind of as the sun is setting, turn off the motor, open the windows, and just hear life. And it is amazing the things that happen within the walls of the homes. And there's that feeling again that Gordy and I have, that we looked at this field at one point that was just dirt, and it kind of wasn't a living feature of society. And then a year and a half, 2 years later, you realize that this is the comfort. This is where dinners are had. This is where farewells. This is where tears. This is where families mourn and celebrate. And there's the feeling of satisfaction in what we're doing. That once again, there is security within the market, all is well. And the little kid riding his big wheel up and down the street will never have an idea of the stress, the anxiety, the earnest money, all of the reports and all of the other planning that's gone into it. So
Yeah, well, that was the whole joke about not wanting to do real estate development because I'm not a details guy. I
Yeah.
have a details guy on my team that's very good. Been with
Yeah.
me for 12 years, right, Chris?
Yeah.
And that's what scared the lights out of me of doing development because there's so much risk and so much goes into it. So many things can go wrong. And so to really be able to have that satisfaction at the end and see the neighborhood, like you said, you created something that
Yeah.
will always be there. That's amazing.
Yeah.
So you guys started quadrupling in sales in 2011, 12, and it's just been an upward trajectory
Yeah.
since then. So when did you guys become the number one home builder in Utah?
About 2 years ago. The hardest part with building a home building company is equity. And the lending institutions to this date do not want to lend on land. So in order to grow a company, you have to be as creative as anything to be able to convince a farmer to sell you their ground in the first place. But then to continue that, to find an investor that will help you finance that and believe in you, even though there's still remnants of the newspapers, of the obliterated market that we once had. So that was the challenge that we had. As the assets that the banks had, the toxic assets that they had were gone, we are now going out and it's a new era. This was about 14 and 15. And we realized that we now had a new company, which was not building off of assets. This is building new assets. And the banks still didn't want to play ball with you. So we spent as much time helping the banks understand who we were, why we were a good investment, and then showing projections as to what we were doing. The banks still didn't want to lever like they used to. You mentioned everybody was a developer. Back in the old days, you would take out your notepad, scratch some numbers on it, hand it to the banker, and they'd say, oh, you're a developer, here's your money, 100%. That isn't the case. Even today, the banks are not wanting to lend, federally restricted.
Well, and one of the things about being a builder is you have to always be buying land. If you don't have land, you don't have lots, you're out of business, right? And
Completely.
so, I mean, how far in advance do you usually have to project your land purchases?
You're asking really, really tough questions. If we could see the future, I would buy right up to that date,
Right.
and then I would stop, and all of my contracts would end. The foreseeable for Edge Homes, meaning Gordy and I, is 2021. People say, okay, so you're getting out in 2021. I say, absolutely not. We are here forever. But the foreseeable that we are investing in. So I am putting into our arsenal for 2020 right now at a rate of about 1,500 to 2,000 lots for 2021. All of my inventory for 19 is safely tucked under the sheets. Everything for about Q1 and 2 for 2020 is also tucked under the sheets. If you don't buy that far in advance, you don't get the subdivisions developed, and you don't have inventory to sell, and people like you, Jimmy, get upset that there's no place for their buyers to go. The catastrophic effect of us not having inventory is that there will continue to be an increase in retail pricing, which we are already at a rate that is unsustainable as a state. The affordability factor continues to be a massive discussion statewide. Our growth as a state is contingent upon us being able to provide housing, or the business growth that we have in Silicon Slopes and elsewhere is going to be challenged.
Yeah, I think that's the biggest issue that we have coming up is that affordability of the new time home buyer, right? The first time home buyer. And there just really isn't much out there. I mean, I know I invested in a couple Edge condos myself about, a year and a half, 2 years ago. And, they've each gone up, I think, $75,000, $80,000 a piece.
You probably should have bought more, Jim.
It turns out. I did sell a lot of investors other units, though. It's funny because Edge, just because you guys have the best low-end inventory, they're the best first-time home buyer inventory or investor inventory. And so I think last year, you tell me if I'm wrong, but I think I was your number one agent in the state for selling Edge homes.
We don't want to feed the ego, Jimmy, but yes, you were.
Well, I only know that because you guys gave me a motorbike for Christmas.
Yes.
Did you know that?
Yeah,
I
yes.
appreciate
A Coleman mini bike.
Yes, it was awesome. I was like,
it would make you feel 12 again.
Absolutely, but it was like so cool because it was there's a different home builder in town in 2007 or 2008. It would have been 2007. I was their number one agent because I sold out 2 full subdivisions in Lehigh basically. I mean, I just had buyers coming from everywhere and they were good deals and And they did a trip at the end of the year where they took all their sales agents to Europe.
Wow.
And I actually sold enough homes that I qualified.
Jimmy, are you asking me to take you to Europe?
No, although I would definitely go if you offer. But it was funny because I asked them, like, hey, that'd be cool, since I qualified. And they were just kind of laughed me off. And I was like, oh. But you guys have always taken good care of me. So anyway.
Well, it goes both ways. We really feel like there's a relationship that needs to exist between realtor and builder. We work hard on making sure that that's maintained, the lines of communication. I do think it's an absolute emotional decision for people to buy homes. Mm-hmm. And as much as you and I can sit here perched saying it doesn't matter what you buy today. It's going to go up in value. And if you wait for the market to correct, your income's not going up as quickly as the market is, and you're going to miss out. Landlords will capitalize on the market today. Rents continue to go through the roof. It is the best investment you'll ever make. And I think it's a forced savings plan. My children that think that they need every consumer item that exists, when I get them into a home, they start thinking, I'm going to make my house payment, I'm going to try to pay off my house, and I'm going to quit buying $600 pairs of tennis shoes. I'm going to. So.
Well, I'm the same way as you. I'm not very good at saving money in an account. Something will come along I want to do. But I buy real estate. I put 20% of every deal I make, every commission, into an account. And when I get enough money for a 20% down payment, I just buy another property. And so you use the words, I call it a forced savings account. It's the only way I'm good at saving money is buying a property I can no longer, touch that money with. So you are correct, though. I tell my buyers right now, I say, look, the market could eventually start going down again. I don't think it's going to go down, but it's going to level off at some point. But it's going to go up 5, 10, 15% still before it does that. So if you wait, by the time it goes up and back down, you got to live somewhere, and you're paying off that mortgage as an investment every single month. Somebody else is paying that down for you if you buy it as a rental. So, it still makes so much sense right now to invest in real estate.
Yeah, I don't think there's a better investment, even if there is a glitch, even if there's a slow. Eventually, had we have held on to everything that was toxic in 08 and 09 and 10, you would have been the wisest man on the face of the earth. And there are those that did that. Yep. And rents have proven in Utah to remain strong, even in headwinds. And I believe that continues to be the trend. I think that we are all seasoned veterans now. I think we will look at a recession or a slowdown significantly different than we once did. And the alarm bells that went off at the time, I think there will be individuals like you that will be able to calm those buyers that are nervous, just to say there will be a season. There is a season. There is a correction, but things will come back.
Yeah, totally 100% agree with that. Well, one of the things that you have to decide as a home builder is, where are we going next? Have you guys thought of expanding to other areas or other parts of Utah? Or have you just, you guys got your corridor that you've kind of really, locked in at that whole Lehigh to Harriman area. Are you thinking of expanding outside of that?
If my competitors are listening, we're going to take over the whole dang state, right? We're going to be from St. George to Tremont, and we're going to be in every small town. But the reality is there is still low-lying fruit here. We are huge believers in this particular area. We believe that if we drive the project, meaning get in a vehicle, go to it, make sure our subs are doing what they say they're supposed to be doing, if we control quality, our emphasis has changed from where it was a few years ago. We were kind of in the ego mood a few years ago, and we would check stats daily to see if we were beating our competitors. Today, what we look at is the customer experience. So we do a survey on every single acquisition, home acquisition, and then a post, and we review those. Anything that is less than satisfactory, either Gordy or myself calls them to find out why the experience wasn't where we felt like it should be. That has become our emphasis, the customer experience. We realize that we can't be all things to all people, but in the space that we own, we want to be the very, very best. And if we can control that, so we are staying put geographically. Our land plays have become bigger. So where we used to like to buy 10 acres and feel really good at night that even if the market was tough, we could get through it. Our average acquisition today is 125 acres. The price point is closer to $15 million for the land. And you talk about the due diligence and the anxiety. The very first land deal I signed on was $170,000 and about $2,000. And I didn't sleep for 2 days, and I had stomach issues for a day and a half. Those days are gone, but I still have the anxiety. I still have the worry. I still second guess your gut feel. I still second guess the spreadsheets. But as long as we're in that corridor, I know that I have thousands of buyers waiting to come into this area. For every community that I release, I have almost 2 times more buyers than I do product. That has become a challenge for us to navigate to make sure that the experience is still positive. So we still continue to try to drive pricing down. We're at a point in the company where we try to look at it globally. We do not want to raise pricing quicker than what the market can sustain, but we need to make sure that our subcontractors are making money. We don't want to create housing affordability issues. We don't want to create a bubble. We want to make sure that we have growth that's sustainable, manageable, and we want to have this market in this area very controlled. So we meet with the business leaders, we meet commercial, we meet residential, and there's really a relationship that exists where we realize we are codependent upon each other. Residential home builders are not independent from commercial. We're not independent from the real estate community. And if we work together to make sure that we grow responsibly, then density is no longer an issue. I had a planning commissioner in one of the municipalities that we do business in that thinks everybody should be on 500 acres. I don't know how to respond to insanity. I don't. I don't want to be on 500 acres, but we don't have that acreage. So responsible growth. There's the anti-development growth. There's the anti-density. You're on the front lines. You're the one taking bullets to the head of people saying, I want a 5,000 square foot home on a half acre for $200,000.
Right.
And you give them a sanity check and you help them realize that the days of old are gone. And I think they're gone forever. I think this is the new norm.
I would agree with that.
I'm offended when I hear people talk about we don't want slums in our community. And I feel like I am selling townhomes for almost $300,000. If $100,000 in income a year, dual income is slum, then we've got to go take some field trips. So there's this real education that you guys as a real estate community are going through on what affordable housing is, because it really doesn't exist anymore. The days of rolling into a neighborhood and having 25 homes to choose from at $200,000 doesn't exist. I presented in a municipality a week ago, and I printed 8 pages of homes available in their community under $200,000. There was nothing on the first 7 pages. On the 7th page, there was one home. It was built in 1954, and you and I both know that would be a weekend project monster for somebody to be able to enjoy.
Yeah.
So
no, that's it is so funny because people keep saying, well, I'm going to wait till the market crashes again. I'm like, you don't understand. Everybody that's in a house right now probably has at least 20% equity, and any investor put 20% down. So most people have between 20 and 50% equity. There's no crash coming. Like, people will just hold on to them. Like you said, rents are strong. People need somewhere to live. We still have less than 2% vacancy here in Utah for rentals. Yeah. And so, anyway, all the economic factors, to me, I'm very bullish still. Well, let me ask you a question. I mean, you've had so much success this last, 8-9 years or whatever. Have you ever had a deal that you bought that you'd be willing to share that didn't go very well? Because I think there's a lot to learn from those times. Did you ever buy a piece of land that maybe didn't work out? Or
Well, I haven't, but I have one even worse than that.
Please.
So I did my due diligence. And it was fantastic. Everything penciled perfectly, and it was a beautiful piece of property. And I didn't quite do the due diligence that I maybe should have, and I didn't quite read the survey stakes. The piece of ground that I thought we were buying, we didn't buy. So I'm looking at a piece, and it was the piece next to it. I have never had such darkness. I was so convinced that this was the only way this piece was going to work. It ended up working out. So and this was probably 10 years ago, I now have gone to the organization factor where I've gone to a bullet point checklist of items that I have to go through. One of those is a physical walkthrough. I have had strange experiences on ground. We were buying a farm from a family in Lehigh. And part of that process is to do some excavation to figure out what is beneath the surface. I had a call from a distressed excavator. When I went out there, he had tied a shirt around his nose, and there was a smell that I have never smelled before. Apparently, the farmer had decided this is where all of his dead cows and all of his dead mink would go. So there was about 1,000 mink and about 25 cows that had just somehow been frozen in time. And when he opened this up, it was a mess. So we didn't end up doing the property. So there's morsels under the ground that we find long before we build neighborhoods.
Wow, that's yeah. Those mink farms. Anybody that's smelled those, I can only imagine the dead mink farm how that smelled. Well, I mean, you got so much going on, and so many people relying upon you. Do you have time? What do you do when you're not, building and working in Edge Homes? What do you like to do for fun? Do you have time to do those things?
You have to make time, otherwise I think you crumble. I've got a ritual in the morning. I meet 3 of my dear friends. 2 of them are my sons and 1 other, and we go to the gym and we unwind and we laugh.
Yeah, you're pretty ripped.
And
I'm
create.
Impressed.
I'm swollen.
Yeah.
I'm retaining water. That's a ritual, and I would call that just emotional recreation. Evenings are boating, horse riding, and I like to drive cars very, very fast. So anything adrenaline related, so that you can numb the mind for a moment or two, is highly sought after.
I think I've caught that theme with a lot of these high achievers that I interview and that I'm friends with, is they like adrenaline. I'm an adrenaline junkie. I can't get enough, right? I'm always having to go do something different. But a lot of them race cars and things like that, so it is kind of funny to see that.
I think it looks romantic to sit next to a pool with a good book, and I can get about a half a page done, and then I'm thinking about everything I should be doing. But if I'm sweating and I have a helmet on, or I'm doing something, then I'm able to have that release. And there is a season to read a book, but it's 4:30 in the morning, and it's not sitting by it. So sitting doing nothing is impossible.
For me, I read when I'm on planes. That's like my time to read. But it's funny because I just got back from Panama. 40 of us went to this resort, one of the most beautiful beaches, and I didn't even sit on it. I didn't even go to the beach. I can't sit there on the beach. Like, my brother, he took his family to Hawaii for 30 days. I think they went to the beach every day. Yeah. And I'm like, I wish I was wired that way. I can't just sit on a beach. I literally get about 15 minutes in, and I'm like, okay, well, now what are we doing,
Yeah. So anything adrenaline related.
Okay. No, I love that. And, all right, fair enough. Well, what advice would you give to somebody that's looking to get into development, somebody that's like, what, I see what Edge Homes is doing, I see some of these big builders, I want to do that as well, they want to be a builder. What advice would you give to, say a kid that's just graduating college that wants to go into the field?
I think everybody wants to swing for the fences, and I think everybody that I know that has swung for the fences is now doing janitorial work, because it's hard. And I am in the process of trying to train the new generation. I'm 50 years old. I'm not going to do this forever. My shelf life will expire, and it would be a tragedy not to pass on the items that I've learned that I had the privilege of learning from other people. I think if you can find a mentor that is willing to share every detail, and if you enter the business humbly, and that's really hard to say, to enter the development world humbly, but if you can enter with a pen in hand and take notes for years. And the hard part is it's many years. I hired an individual here to start doing land acquisition. He came from a competitor. And I said, it will take you about 5 years to onboard. 14 months into it, he came in emotional. It's Curtis Levitt. I don't even mind sharing his name because he's a heck of a guy. And he said, I was insulted when you told me that it would be a 5-year learning curve. He said, I don't feel like I know any more today than I did unless I look back and realize what I've learned. But to develop is easy. To develop successfully and profitably takes a lot of experience. So I would say slow down to speed up. Don't think you're as good as your mom tells you you are. Don't think you're as good as your professors tell you. Realize that what you've learned in school is already antiquated with how the real world is being done. Years ago, I had a professor ask a question, and he said, define banking. And everybody gave the standard answer. And then he said, wrong, it's relationship based. I didn't realize that until the recession, because I would go in, I would do my typical banking, I would sign bank documents, but I realized that banking needs to be a relationship. Development is that way. You've got to become partners. You've got to have a relationship with the land seller, with the neighbors. The biggest advocates for growth is the existing neighborhood. If you don't understand how to interact with people, you better go back and understand how to interact with people. But slow down and realize that at 25 years old, you don't know as much as you think you might know. Your education might have taught you some basics, but the real world is going to kick a lot of that out of you, and then just understand that everything takes time. If you feel like you can do something quicker, listen to the gray-haired old guys because they've done it and they understand it. And then I have a good friend that has now passed away, L&T Construction, Lou Bankhead. He used to say this all the time, measure twice and cut once. I think you measure 100 times in development and then cut once, and then just keep your eyes open. And at some point, you just have to grin and bear it when you've made a mistake.
Well, I think it's all amazing advice. Again, I couldn't have more respect for you and what you've built. I got my degree, my master's, in what you're doing.
Yeah.
And literally my takeaway was, I don't think I can do that. So
That's an expensive lesson, Jimmy.
You know what? I actually learned, though, how to read a business and how to read documents and things like that. It really was helpful for me. So it has helped my business and my investing a lot.
Yeah.
But as far as development goes, I'd rather piggyback and, one day help finance somebody like yourself. So, well, you guys are amazing.
Thanks, Jimmy.
Thanks for making it easy as a realtor to do deals with you guys. So thanks so much.
Thanks for your time, Jimmy.
Appreciate it.
Thanks.